During pregnancy, we'll have some adaptive changes to make room for the baby that's growing inside. What this can look like is it can look like ribs that are flared wider or ribs that are flared forward, a pelvis that is splayed open a little bit wider to accommodate the baby, and then maybe a pelvis that's tipped forward. The thing with it is we can all kind of adapt differently and respond to that differently. So some might succumb to the effects of gravity of everything coming out, and then other people might add a layer of compensation or adaptation on top of that to help root them and pull themselves back. So this could look like upper ab gripping or glute gripping. This is one of my favorite exercises to help reorient the rib cage and the pelvis so that we can find the right muscles to help pull us back and basically change the resting length of a muscle to help all the other muscles function like they're supposed to function. So what we're going to do here is we're going to think about in a pregnancy posture, underneath it all, everything's growing out this way, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our body in the opposite direction. We're going to do that by finding our hamstrings, because as your pelvis gets wider and then might tip forward, those hamstrings get overly lengthened. So we're going to pull them back and kind of shorten them in a sense so that now there's a better position for muscles to move from, because muscles like working at mid-range. We're then going to think about using our abs to help not just crunch us down, but pull ourselves back, and then the scapula are going to reach through. So it's this kind of seesaw effect that goes up the body. So what we're going to do here is you're going to have your feet on a wall. If you have a hard time finding your hamstrings, you can always tuck your feet underneath a couch or underneath some weights to give it a little bit more traction, but we're always making sure we're not curling those toes. You don't have to worry about your heels touching the wall, but feet are going to be on the wall, and I'm going to make sure my hips are right over my knees and my shoulders are right over my wrists and elbows aren't wing out to the side. So even for here, we might have to adjust a little bit of maybe you need to sink down to come back out, maybe you need to tip forward to then be able to come back, but we're kind of starting in a neutral position where everything is just kind of flat to begin with as best we can. Now what we're going to do is you're going to think about dragging your feet up the wall. So try to actually drag those feet up the wall, but don't let them move. That's going to engage your hamstrings on the backs of your thighs here. Because your knees aren't bending, your hamstrings also attach to your sit bones. So now you're going to think about this rotation occurring through your pelvis, feeling your sit bones drop down to the backside of your knees. As you go to do this, you have to make sure that you're not clenching your glutes. So that can be tricky in and of itself. So we're going to go as best we can, and you can see as I get that rotation, this brings length and openness into my back and into this area that can get compressed as we're accommodating the growth of the baby out to the front. Hip flexors stay nice and relaxed. Now we're going to think about our upper body and our abs. So if we're sinking down here, you're going to press to broaden between those shoulder blades. Maybe think about hugging that baby up in towards your spine so that in the end, I'm creating an equal rounding through the entire back side of my body. As you're doing this, you're making sure you don't over round from one area to make up for another area not moving. So the amount of movement that you get might not be as dramatic at first, but it's all about working into it so everything can work equally together. So we're finding those hamstrings to tuck under, finding that little bit of that press and broadening while keeping that collarbone slightly lifted. Abs are hugging and lifting that baby up and in, which can be tricky as gravity takes more effect to it and that baby gets bigger. And then now we're going to use our breath to open up into that position a little bit more. So I'm going to inhale, thinking about breathing in between my shoulder blades, into my sides, into my back, into my hips. So inhale. You're going to think about keeping that expansion. Exhale, maybe find a pinch more hamstrings and think about those abs and ribs knitting around towards each other and lifting up another millimeter. Keep that tension in the front. Inhale again, exhale. So we'll go a couple times for you here. So we're going to set up, find the tuck, a little bit of broadening, little ab lift, so it's that equal rounding through your entire back. Head and neck is nice and relaxed. You're going to inhale, exhale, keep that front tension, inhale, exhale, watching to make sure that everything is rounding equally and you're not driving the movement from one area more than another. In the end, you should feel your hamstrings working, you should feel your abs working, you shouldn't feel your glutes or your back or your neck, and you should just see that progressive expand on the inhale, exhale into that, expand on the next inhale, exhale a little bit more. And then afterwards, you might find when you go to stand up, it's a little easier to stand a little taller. That baby's automatically hugged in a little bit more close to you, and those glutes are a little bit more relaxed versus clenching to anchor and stabilize you. So give that a shot and see if that's a nice little pregnancy reset to help you get through the day.